Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. Before we get into anything else today, I just want to quickly touch upon that incredible Dele Alli interview. Honestly, the bravery to talk about the things he spoke about. Honestly, I found that one of the most remarkable interviews I've ever seen. Was it just under 45 minutes worth of... It was so difficult to watch at times, so emotional to watch at times. Just the overriding sense I got from it, though, was just how brave he was in the subjects that he opened up on and what he spoke to people about, because it gave me a real sense of hope for Delhi and what comes next for him. But I also really felt how inspiring that could be for other people. Anyone else going through any issues with their lives and the mental health side of things, or any addictions or any things that's happened in the past, to see someone kind of, that moment, honestly. I mean, you saw even Gary Neville was tearful, and it was just, I think it will. I just think that's the way to say it. I think it will inspire other people. And as he kind of said in it, regardless of the headlines, whatever kind of came out of it afterwards in terms of the media, if he can help just one other person, it will have been incredible. But I think it will be so many more than one person. I think so many people will have been touched by that, and it will inspire them to open up and talk to people and hopefully really change their lives for the better. I love the fact that he's been taking some real major steps behind the scenes himself, to kind of just help himself get through a lot of these horrible things that have happened to him in the past and the problems he's had subsequently. And again, I know you've got to kind of fingers crossed and everything, but it really felt like such a huge stride forward for Delhi. And yeah, I just hope this leads to what it feels like it's going to lead to, which is, I was going to say the old Delhi back, but he made it quite clear in the interview that he doesn't want to just be the old Delhi. He wants to be even better, and I think that's massive. And he sounded so passionate about the game again, and it was just wonderful. It was lovely to... It's really difficult. I don't want to say it was lovely to watch, because it wasn't. It was a really tough watch, but it's lovely just to see him in a space where he feels happy again. I think that's the most important thing. And also, I know it's not as big as the main thing, but also kudos to Gary Neville for it as well, because Spurs fans obviously haven't been the biggest fans of Gary Neville, what with the Harry Kane interview in 2021, which obviously came at an awkward time and things like that. But I actually felt that Gary Neville did the most important thing you can do in an interview, and that is just to let the interviewee talk. Let them go where they want to go with it. Let them speak. And he let Delhi say everything he needed to say and get off his chest. And that was so important. You get so many interviews nowadays, and it frustrates me so much to watch when the interviewer kind of interrupts and feels like they have to kind of force or turn the angle of the questioning or the interview where it's going. Just let the person tell their story. And he did that so well. And that, I really felt, helped Delhi kind of feel comfortable and not feel like he was in this pressurized interview situation, even though it kind of was. I just felt that was such an important thing. And honestly, if you haven't watched it, I really recommend you watch it. It's like I say, brave is just the word I can only keep saying, to talk about the things he spoke about. And again, it's just another example that we don't know what's going on in people's lives. We don't. We're all so quick to judge and criticise, and I include myself in that, in media, anything, without knowing what might be going on behind the scenes with people. And yeah, honestly, I really hope that these are the big, huge first steps of a real renaissance and return for Dele Alli. That would be wonderful. I actually saw some people say, wouldn't it be great if he came back to Spurs? And do you know what? There was a part of me that thought, do you know what? In the Postecoglou system with a number 8, your mind starts to kind of flash forward far too much. And then you've got to remind yourself, it's just about the now for Delhi. It's about continuing to make these steps forward, and hopefully he really gets back to where he was, but then is even better. He's still young. Was he 26, 27? It's there's so much road ahead of him to do what he wants in his career. He could have such a long career left ahead of him. And if he's got that fire back in him and that passion, who knows where it can go for him. I didn't actually get to watch it until later in the day today because I had a really busy morning and I just wanted to carve out that little bit of time, that 45 minutes or so to watch it, and it was worth it. It really was, and I really do recommend it to anyone. Remarkable. It was remarkable. So yeah, that's Delhi. I just wanted to say that first because I felt that everything else we're going to talk about, ultimately, it's just football. And I felt with this and Delhi, this was life, and this was a really important thing. I didn't want it to feel like it was anywhere lower in the pecking order than the first thing I should talk about. Wonderful, and hopefully it leads to fantastic things for Delhi. I really hope it does. Where we're going to start? Back down to football. Back down to Tottenham Hotspur and all things Spurs. Harry Kane seems as good a place to start, I think. So from what I understand, kind of doing a bit of... I'm actually off today. I was off yesterday as well because heading off on the tour tomorrow. So I've kind of been trying to take some time off and prepare myself. I haven't actually packed yet. That's how kind of busy I've been doing various bits and pieces. I've still got to pack tonight. No one really cares. Ignore that. Let's go back to football. You don't need to know about my packing situation. But I have been making some kind of calls and digging around and trying to find out any latest bits and pieces because I knew I wanted to do a video before I went. I will try and do some videos while I'm out there, but I wanted to make sure I did one before I left. So with Harry Kane, from what I understand, we know, obviously, well, not understand, we know he was back at Hotspur Way on Wednesday with the rest of, or a big chunk of the international players. And we all knew there was going to be this... I guess just the initial talks, the chats with Ange Postecoglou. From what I understand, they went well. They did go well. Postecoglou left a really positive impression on Kane, so that's a good thing. And they got on well, is what I've been told. And this is from all sides. You know, people are going to think, "Oh, that's what the club would say." It's not. I'm hearing this from all angles, from both sides. That. Yeah, really positive stuff. And the thing for Kane, obviously, now is we're well aware that Bayern Munich are sniffing around in the background, very hopeful or trying to bring him across to the Bundesliga and German football. And obviously, we know that €80 million bid plus add-ons as well. It's about 68.3 million, the basic figure went in. All indications seem to be that if Spurs were even to discuss it, it would have to be a huge, far bigger bid than that. From what I understand from the players' point of view, because obviously, pretty sure I said this in the last video, that Spurs, have, how do I put this? Is the best way to put this? Have offered Kane the opportunity to discuss a massive, huge new contract. And at the moment, obviously, if you're not aware, he's only got 12 months left, which is why Bayern think that they should be getting him for less than he would normally be available for. Spurs obviously clearly disagreeing on that point, which is a good thing for us, I think, and everyone wanting to see Kane stick around certainly next season and then plenty more. From the player's point of view, it appears to be that he's in no rush to sit down and talk about that new deal yet. He just wants to see the big picture, what's going to happen this window. But from what I understand, he's keeping all options open. This is not the case that, there's one definite thing that seems to be the way forward. I think from what the impression I get, Kane is waiting to see essentially what Spurs decide first. Are they going to accept an offer from Bayern? And if they are, then that's something clearly he will look at. And obviously, if you believe what's being said in Germany, lots of reports suggesting that he would be very open to that move. But it doesn't sound like Kane has ruled out the possibility that he stays at Spurs next season. You know, he's committed for his contract is for another season. If he's there for another season, there doesn't seem to be any kind of, issue if that's the case. But there is also another option that isn't being ruled out, is that he stays at Spurs, absolutely loves working under Postecoglou, and ends up signing a new contract, say, later in the year. So all options being kept open at the moment. I don't get the impression at this stage, unless something turns, I don't get the impression at this stage that there's a desperate thing from Kane to force his way out to try to go to Bayern, or saying, no, I'm here forever. It feels like at the moment it's just assessing what the future holds. And ultimately, as with everything in the past, this summer still, it is down to Spurs. It's up to Spurs whether they accept a bid for him, and if they do, then that's the next step for Kane. And if they don't, then Kane will focus on next season. And if next season, or this coming season, is a fantastic one, fingers crossed, he may sit down, talk about this massive new contract. And I saw, just as I was coming on, some of the other media, I think it was Sammy Mockbell and Matt Law, were suggesting that there's other stuff including in it, maybe post career, football career, as in playing career, like a bit Ryan Mason, coaching stuff. I'm intrigued to see how that would work with Kane, because there's definitely this feeling with him that he wants to have a stab at trying to be an NFL kicker. There's a lot of people that, I love my NFL as well, but there's people that are far more experienced than I am, who know really inside out what it takes to be a kicker as well, that say that would be incredibly difficult. But you wouldn't put anything past Harry Kane. So if that is what he wants to do, you wouldn't rule it out as entirely. But it's obviously it's still it's a tough ask, Having seen people go across from rugby league, and try and be in the NFL and struggle to kind of make that step. It's not just that I'm going to go and kick a ball. And I'm sure Harry Kane knows this. He's a massive NFL nut, so he knows very well exactly what the game's going to hold. But sorry, I digress. I'm going down the NFL route, which is clearly not the most important stuff now. But yeah, I think the key thing, the new stuff, is that apparently, Postecoglou's left a good impression on him. I've had some good chats, and from what I understand is this whole kind of painting of it as a transfer showdown is not what it's been, or what it was ever expected to be. More so just a Spurs player meeting his new manager, like any of the other players. And to be fair, that's kind of exactly pretty much what Postecoglou said in his press conference. Obviously, we're going to talk about that, because I finally got to meet Big Ange and got to put 3 questions to him, and I was impressed by him, but we'll talk about that in a little moment. It was actually, the quotes here from Postecoglou's press conference actually are probably quite important to this moment, and exactly this point where we're talking about. He said, he said it was never going to be about convincing Kane to stay. That was never going to be what this meeting or chat, talk, whatever you want to call it, was going to be about. He said, I don't want that kind of conversation. What I want is to introduce myself to Harry and give him my vision of the football club and get a sense from him on what he thinks the club needs to do to be successful, and then walk out on that training pitch and try to make it happen. And when he was asked about Bayern's attempts and the bid that has been made, while he did say, I've been given no assurances, he very quickly also said, nothing's landed on my desk at this moment from anybody at the club to say there's a decision to be made there. Not even close to that. So because of that, I'm looking forward to Harry here on Wednesday and getting ready for the tour. Harry Kane's the ultimate professional. He's not going to kick up a fuss and say, I'm not going on the tour or anything like that. There would have to have been, Bayern had managed to get to some kind of advanced stage for that to happen. Because obviously you then go into the area of if he got injured, insurance, all this sort of stuff. But I think that's a positive thing. I think the fact that he and Postecoglou have got on and Postecoglou's impressed him. Postecoglou's an impressive man. I think you would be hard pushed to listen to what Postecoglou wants for your football club and not think, do you know what? That's pretty decent. I like that. So I can imagine, because this is the thing. Harry Kane's had so many new managers come in and try and woo him. But I never get the impression from Postecoglou in the way he was talking on Monday that he was ever going to try and woo Harry Kane. He was just going to say, this is me. This is what I do. This is what I'm going to do for your football club. If you want that, cracking. If you don't, I understand. It's a bit like James Maddison. If you remember when he joined, he said something similar that Postecoglou said to him, whether you join or not, you're going to see a very different Tottenham Hotspur. And that's it. It's very much like, get on board the Ange train or don't, because it's still going in that direction. And we know what Harry Kane's like. Harry Kane's ambition has always been to win trophies with Tottenham Hotspur. That's it. And if he feels like with Postecoglou, you know what, maybe we can, why not? Why not? I've said it before, and people very quickly kind of pointed out that actually it was correct, which is great. The last two attacking managers Spurs have had, Pochettino, before him, Redknapp, both their first season they reached the Carabao Cup final. Hopefully Postecoglou does the same and then takes the next step and they win something. I still just got this funny feeling they might win the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup or one of those. But so it's a positive start. Who knows? Tomorrow we might wake up to the news that Bayern are confident of putting in £100 million bid and getting him or whatever. There's been some suggestions that maybe you're looking at Spurs wanting something like 120 million before even starting to talk, which you would think surely Bayern would start to see it from a monetary, financial, paper point of view, whatever you want to call it, and think, okay, he's 30 this month, a year left in his contract. Should we pay 120 million for him? Personally, I would pay 120 million for Harry Kane in a heartbeat, but I can understand also a club might scare them off, especially if they think maybe we can get him in 6 months on a free and a pre-contract or in a year for free. I just wonder. I've said this before. I wonder if with Bayern there's any fear that in 6 months or a year the competition might edge them out. I don't know. I saw some reports from Germany saying otherwise, that they feel that they can get him then. I just want to see him playing a Spurs shirt next season, to be honest, because I just do genuinely feel that if he gives the Postecoglou era a chance, which it sounds like he could do, or it sounds like he's been impressed so far, I think Harry Kane will be very happy at Spurs, and I think he might sign that new deal if the football is what we expect it's going to be and Spurs start to head in an upward trajectory, because at this point in time, I know you'll say it's at different levels and different leagues, Postecoglou hasn't failed anywhere in delivering what he wanted. The only spell was that little spell he had at a Greek club that's name has escaped me, but he went into what apparently was just a bit of a mess and a tough situation and quickly realised and wasn't there for very long. But everywhere where he's actually gone into a challenge, fully understanding what that challenge was, and he spoke a lot on Monday about loving a rebuild, relishing going into something where there is something he has to turn around. And I think I've got some quotes later about that. And if I'm Kane, I'm thinking, you know what? This actually might be a bit quicker. He probably thought to himself, I don't want to be in another rebuild. I don't want to be on this long-term, slow path back to maybe winning things. I need to win things in my career now. But when you listen to Postecoglou, you don't get the impression that it's a long track that they're on. That it is actually, if you start playing that way, it's probably going to happen quite quickly. And he did actually say a lot has been made about the fact that, the early results are rocking. He said, that's the case. There have been. But actually, if you look at the various clubs, there's been different time periods. And a lot of it is dependent on variables, the players you've got, how quickly people buy in. So you never know. If people buy in at Spurs quite quickly, especially if, let's say, if Harry Kane were to set that example, they could very quickly all buy in. If they see Harry Kane, who, let's be honest, if he stays and Lloris is going, he's going to be the captain. Of course he is. So if they see their captain, he's one of the best players in the world, saying, love it, I'm going to do what Postecoglou wants, they're all going to fall into line. Of course they are. And that means a very quick adaptation to the Postecoglou football and system. So, yeah. So, Harry Kane at this point, of course, will be heading off on the tour. They depart later on tomorrow. If you're not aware, going to Australia, Thailand and Singapore. Postecoglou named his travelling squad. I presume that will come out tomorrow. It's normally in the morning of when they depart, I think. I depart later in the day as well, actually. I have a funny feeling that we've both got the same time flights, but not the same flights. I don't think so. Anyway, I've got to go connecting. I'm going a bit around the houses, but I'll get there. I will get there. So in terms of travelling squad, we know that the ones definitely missing out are Rodrigo Bentancur, Fraser Forster's got a back injury, and Ryan Sessegnon. From what I understand, Jed Spence and Troy Parrott have a little bit of a kind of a race to be fit to go. Hopefully they are. And obviously you're going to see players left behind because they're going to be sorting out moves, as they always do with a Spurs tour. With Sess, I feel so sorry for him. He's had to have an operation. on his left hamstring. But from what I understand, again, you've got to look to the positive side of this. And with Cess, from what I understand, not only was the operation a success, but it's actually an operation that is expected to render any chance of a recurring hamstring issues in that area absolutely to tiny size. Really incredibly slim chances of him having a reoccurrence. Apparently, from what I understand, Cess had been trying to do everything to avoid surgery. He just wanted to play. He wanted to impress Postecoglou. But eventually it just proved necessary. And from what I understand, it's like one of the most world-renowned surgeons, specialists who's done the operation. And they're delighted with it, think it's absolutely gone exactly how they planned. Obviously, it means that he's not going to be able to move in the window. Recovery time is going to take him beyond the window, it seems. So, but fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. You know, he's so young. He really is so young. Was he 22, 23? 23. He's 23. I wrote it down. Any player that has these injury problems just gets so much flack. They really do from people. It's a frustration. I understand where it comes from, but you've got to also try and see it from his point of view. He's one of the most exciting young talents in English football, and unfortunately, just in recent years, his hamstrings have just ruined his development. I've actually got here the tweet he put out, which was just so sad. Devastated and not really sure what to say right now, but I wanted to come on here and say thank you for all the kind messages I've received. Hopefully this provides a light at the end of the tunnel. I feel very hungry and motivated to return stronger than ever and be back doing what I do best for you guys. Thank you, Cess. I just thought that was really nice, because he must. Well, he's said it himself. He's absolutely devastated. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed it all works out for him. It may be that maybe he's back in a certain time and he needs the end. You know, maybe goes on a January loan perhaps to get the minutes he needs. But whatever. He needs to get back to where he was and hopefully no more of this. It must be soul destroying. Every time you feel like you're getting somewhere, suddenly your hamstring lets you down. But if surgery is going to sort it, then that's the main thing. What else has happened this week? Manor Solomon has signed a 5-year deal. Don't really need to go into him too much because I spoke about him loads, I think, in the last video. It's a good sign. It's a relatively free transfer. You've got to look at him as the replacement in the squad for a Lucas or a Danjuma. So it's someone that can come in and make an impact. And I feel like off the bench, especially against tired defences, I think he can. He's playing with probably, hopefully, a higher level of player than maybe he's played with before. There's a lot of good players at Shakhtar and Fulham, of course. But you would hope that he's kind of, he's going to be putting in... he's been linking up with the likes of Kane and Sonny, and Kulusevski and Richarlison and maybe Brian Hill as well. He's got to, as I said before, he's got to improve his assists. Needs that number to be far higher than it is because that's really, looking back at his numbers, has been something that hasn't been good enough. He needs to score more goals as well. Had that little 5-game streak last season where he scored a couple of absolutely beautiful curling goals that were very similar. But assists needs to be more. But he's still young. That can be sorted. Intrigued to see what kind of impact he makes. And obviously he's arrived soon enough. Hopefully, as long as the work permit and international clearance went through in time, should be going off on that tour tomorrow. So, I don't know why. I just got real Jose Dominguez vibes about him when I saw it. Absolutely, I don't really know why. I've obviously watched all the YouTube compilations and stuff like that. Maybe it's just the fact that he's just kind of a little bit of a diminutive dribbling winger type. It just reminded me of Jose Dominguez. So that's a new arrival. Hopefully the centre back, situation, they need to get at least one in soon. I think the idea was always to have one on the tour. Whether that means they'd link up later or not, I don't know. But they've got to make that decision now between Van der Ven, Tapsoba, Adarabioyo and Longley. It may well be that if they can get more of defenders out the door than they kind of expected they were going to be able to, maybe you see a few of those going. Obviously, we all want, the dream scenario would be that you get a couple of those in, you get a Van der Ven and a Tapsoba. But yeah, I think one of those will have to accelerate quite quickly because they just can't mess around much longer. They're going to have to just pay really whatever they're getting close to. You'd imagine that, I've said this before, but obviously Fabio Paratici, we know he's still involved in a consultancy basis with Spurs. He likes all his plates spinning at one time. Just got to push the button on one of them because you look at the tour, and at the moment it will be Romero and Dyer and Tanganga. We don't know whether Sanchez and Rodon will be allowed to stay at home and sort out what comes next for them. It could well be that they're allowed to do that. It's a difficult one. They both got interest from clubs. But then also, if I'm Ange Postecoglou, I'm probably just want to have a little look at them on tour as well. Could maybe let them fly back, if something does get to a serious stage. But ultimately, I do think a new defender has to get in there and among that group quite quickly. Especially because the centre-back, well, every position in a Postecoglou team is a very important cog in that machine. But defenders, centre-backs, it's such a particular way of playing. I think you do have to get in there, a bit like the midfielders, and get used to it quite quickly. Who else has come back? I'm trying to think. Everyone has come back. Even Destiny Udogie came back quite quickly. I think the only one really left to know whether he was going to come back or not is Oliver Skipp. Personally, knowing the character that Oliver Skipp is, I wouldn't be shocked if we see him much sooner rather than later, because he is a bit of a warrior and he will want to impress Postecoglou. And he didn't have loads of game time at the Euros. He had enough. He made his impact. He's a European champion. But, in terms of starting every match, he wasn't doing that. So he may feel that he's not that tired. Obviously could do with a holiday at some point. But yeah, I'm intrigued to see whether his name is among that touring party. If I were to hazard a guess, I would say it might be. But I don't know whether that's the case or not. But yeah, I can imagine Skippy making himself available to go on the tour. But we shall see. Or whether it is something where he links up with them later in Australia or Thailand or Singapore. But yeah, I just can't. I'd be stunned if Skippy passes up the opportunity to try and, especially with Bentancur being out for the first few months of the season, Højbjerg potentially leaving, there's a window for him. And yeah, it might be a good opportunity for him. So we'll see. We'll find out tomorrow. Yeah, let's talk about Postecoglou's press conference. It was really good. It was really impressive. It's really weird those first few minutes when you meet someone that you've been researching so much. All the research I've been putting in, all the videos and podcasts and everything I've been watching with Postecoglou, he, has really impressed me. He's certainly someone that has grown on me more and more the more I've read and heard from him, and I'm reading his book as well. I'm going to be reading that on the flight as well. Got enough time to kill. It's pretty much 24 hours or so in the air, or just under. And yeah, you get that weird little moment when you first see them. It's almost like you're seeing a movie star. And this is as a journalist as well. But it's because you've seen them so much on a screen that it's always a bit like, ooh. Like when they're looking like one of the, what's that from Toy Story, isn't it? It's one of the aliens. Outsider. And it just takes you a moment to like, okay, you've got to click back into work mode. You've got to interview him and all that. You can't be starstruck because you're going to have to deal with this guy week in, week out. But it's weird. But it applies to anyone. It's not even like people that are particularly famous. It can be people that you've just read loads about and then you suddenly see them. But yeah, it was an interesting press conference because it was a busy room. I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure every seat was full. But I will always compare with... What was the date? I'd written it down here. November 21st, 2019. Hotspur Way press conference room was like nothing I've ever seen before. It was the arrival, if you haven't worked out from the date, of Jose Mourinho. There were so many. It was the most media I've ever seen squeezed into that room. I think I remember being told there was something like more than 100 different media outlets were there. People were not only sat in every chair, but they were lined up in rows down the side of the press conference, just wanting to be in there. There were so many cameras at the back of the room. There were so many outlets from around the world. It was just incredible. But it's a bit, you can't really compare Postecoglou and Mourinho, because Mourinho is someone clearly, it's just a huge global name. He's got millions hanging on his every word. Whereas Postecoglou is huge in Australia. I'm expecting, from what I've been told, it's going to be a bit like Ange Mania when we're out there in Perth. So, but in terms of a global name, of course, Mourinho is absolutely huge. But you know what? I think it being slightly lower key, and again, I've seen it quieter for certain managers that have come in, but having not being an absolute madhouse, I do think lent itself to a bit more of a, how do I put it, a composed, it gave him a bit of a better connection with us as journalists, and he was able to kind of talk without feeling like he was in the glare of all these hundreds of cameras trained on him. It was good, and because he came in with these two different elements to the press conference, that first off, because of the buy-in bid that had come in the day before, he was very aware that this press conference was going to be so dominated by talk about Harry Kane. But then he also, there's a little bit of pressure on him to come into this press conference and wow a little bit, I think. I think a lot of fans have really turned to the idea of him, and that he could actually be fun. It could be something that Spurs fans are going to enjoy watching his style of football. And even better than that, maybe it might lead to something tangible. But he still had to come in as the new Spurs boss and actually make an impression on the media as well. I'm not saying that, you have to have us in your back pocket to help you out, but it helps if the media are impressed by the person. It means you just get that little bit more patience, and you get that little bit more, I guess, latitude when things maybe aren't going well. I thought he was excellent. I thought he was really, really good. He gave a real commanding, assured kind of performance, but with really nice touches of humour. He's quite a funny guy, got quite a dry sense of humour, had us all laughing a fair bit. He just looked completely at ease. Because this is the thing, it's like, he's not some newcomer. He's not like some young manager in his 30s or something coming into a situation for the first time. It's not like poor old Ryan Mason in 2021 being thrown into a scenario where he was going to have to talk about the farcical Super League stuff and things like that, and Mourinho being sacked. This is a 57-year-old man that's been around the world and is used to so many different challenges, and he just looked completely comfortable, and that's a huge thing. And I think that's what I imagine when we talk about Kane earlier. I can imagine that the way he spoke to Harry Kane was not being overawed in any way that he's speaking to one of the best strikers in the world. He would have just been an Ange Postecoglou, and that's the key thing. And that defines everything he does. His football is just Ange Postecoglou football. That's it. He doesn't pretend to be anyone else. He doesn't look to follow anyone else. It's all an extension of who he is, and he makes that very clear. It was a long press conference. It was 53 minutes in all. You're probably like, what a nerd, why do you know that? It's only because we put our dictaphone at the top on the desk, which actually was my first interaction with him, because he was like you right there, kind of thing. I didn't say anything like that. It was like a higher thing. I don't know why I decided, you right there? I don't know why I decided to turn him into a Cockney. But yeah, no, it was very pleasant as I put the thing down that was my first interaction ahead of the actual questions. But that's why I knew it was 53 minutes. And I looked back, actually. I looked down all my recordings to see the previous first press conferences. I think I missed the Conte one. I think I was away. Although technically the first Conte press conference it wasn't a Conte press conference. It was Paratici after he joined, because he technically wasn't able to do one yet, Conte, because I think he was waiting for his work permit. I think his first actual press conference ended up being a post-match one after the Conference League game, wasn't it? It was the crazy game. Vitesse. Was it Vitesse at home? I think it was, the mad one. But I look back, yeah, so 53 minutes was a long one. It was nowhere near Mourinho's. And Mourinho's was an hour and 12 minutes. I remember with Mourinho, because if you're not aware, a press conference is divided, pre-match ones these are divided into a broadcast section, which is for the cameras, the TV companies, and I guess website media can ask questions in there as well, which is where I often ask my questions. But there's also then what's called a written section, or the embargo section, which is where the national newspapers ask their questions that will go in the next morning's newspaper. Often, sometimes it can be the morning after. And then what happens is online, everyone's able to use those. It's normally 10:30 at night, or Dan Kilpatrick from the Evening Standard will sometimes have his own little set of questions which will go at midday the next day. So it can kind of almost be like a threefold press conference. And again, I've just remembered something I always get asked. People say, why can't the journalists have microphones? Because you can't hear the questions, you can only hear the answers. I don't know. I've heard so many people. It's not my remit. It's nothing I can be responsible for. Please direct all of your complaints towards Tottenham Hotspur, because I get so many people asking that, and I have mentioned it, but ultimately not many clubs actually do that. It's something that in European matches we do get handed a microphone and we'll speak, but it's not something that actually really happens in any, I'm trying to think, any post-match press conferences I've been at any club after a Premier League game. It's just not done. I think probably the idea is that no one really cares what the journalist has said. That's the thought, because it's all about the managers. They're the important people. But clearly some people do want to hear our questions. I guess maybe because it doesn't make sense. What I would say is that you lucky people that follow Tottenham Hotspur, I always produce a transcript after every press conference I'm in. So you will get all the questions laid out and you will get all the answers laid out. So fear not. If you don't know what the questions are, look out for my transcript. Every word even. But yeah, no, so, actually, that reminded me, I looked back as well to see what Nuno's was. So, Postecoglou, 53 minutes. Mourinho, an hour and 12. Can you guess, before I say it, what Nuno's was? First press conference, meeting the media, having to convince everyone he was not 27th in line to be Tottenham manager. It was 28 minutes long. And that pretty much summed up Nuno. I got on all right with Nuno. That Nuno did not want to talk. He had no interest in the media. He had no interest in letting the outside world know anything about him, despite the fact that it kind of helps if you can say good things that make the fans like you and give you a bit more time. Nuno did not want to. I remember at one press conference trying to help him so much because I knew what he was doing. He was tying himself up in absolute knots. And I think my question was something like, you see, I can try and be nice sometimes. I tried to ask him, I think the question was along the lines of, so can you tell the fans, because obviously the whole worry about him was that the football was rubbish and that he didn't really want to play attacking football. So I said, obviously, Nuno, can you assure the fans, though, that of course this is part of a process, and when you get to the end of this process, you can guarantee that the football will be good football. It's just a case of you getting your mark on the team. Thinking, okay, he's going to say, yeah, of course, yeah, we're going to play some sexy football. His answer was, no, I cannot give any such assurances. It's just that, that Roy Hodgson meme where he's watching and he goes, that was me at the press conference. Like, I tried to help. I won't bother again. So yeah, that was Nuno. Spoke to the media pretty much by the sounds of it as much as he spoke to his players. Not a lot. Although, to be fair, Big Ange, he's always telling us and telling people that he only speaks to players for a minute or so, and that's all he ever really does. But as I said before, surely he would have to change that with Harry Kane, because, as he said in his own words, he's going to talk about the future and what they want to do. So it's got to be a longer conversation than a minute. Might even ask him that on tour. Did you last longer than a minute, Ange? Yeah. What else? What else was really good about it? Yeah, it was quite good because there were some people trying to use the whole, you've gone from Celtic, but now you're in the big leagues, you're in the Premier League kind of thing. And he just didn't see it as that. He didn't see it as a step up. He just said it's just another challenge. He's been to all these different countries and like Japan and just had to work out what the challenge was, what needed to be done at the club, and then just do it. And every time he succeeded. And just his opening words, he was asked what it felt like to be at Spurs, and this would have been music to Spurs fans' ears. So his words were, delighted to be here. And let's be honest, the last manager, maybe that wasn't something we always felt was the case. Again, really got on well with Antonio Conte, and I liked a lot of the stuff he did. Did I ever feel that Antonio Conte was delighted to be at Tottenham Hotspur? No, I did not. I never really got that impression. But yeah, I thought that was just quite nice for his first words to be that. Harry Kane question, the first one came 3 in, to which brought quite a funny little response. He said, he smiled, Big Ange, and he said, question 3 was Harry, was it? We were running a pool with the coaches. I think Mile Jedinak won, actually. I had over 6 because I thought you'd care more about me. It was very clever. It was a good way to kind of, maybe some journalists that might have been thinking about asking about Harry Kane might go, yeah, maybe I won't then. He still get a fair few, to be honest. It didn't stop those who just were desperate to ask the questions. I thought he did really well with the Harry answers, because he had to tread this fine line, really, between kind of making it clear that anything could still happen, because we don't know what Bayern are going to do, but also making it very clear that just he wants the player. He wants the player to stay at the club. He is very excited about what Kane can do in his team, but also has to tread this line between not disrespecting Harry Kane in any way, but also treating him like anyone else and not singling him out as this be-all and end-all. And I thought he kind of straddled that very well. Really, really impressive dealing with it. He's not going to suffer fools gladly or be the butt of any jokes. One reporter thought it would be hilarious to say "G'day, Ange," as they started their question, to which they got a very kind of, one of those looks was like, there's a smile, was like, I could kill you right now, kind of thing. And he said, I've written it down, he said, yeah, that's a good start. Yeah, g'day, how are you, mate? And it was like, really like, ooh, kind of thing. I mean, it's one of those where you could read it both ways. He may have just genuinely been saying, oh, I like to hear a bit of a familiar thing, but I didn't really take it as that. I took it as like, yeah, do that again. See how it works for you. And as I said before, sometimes when he uses mate, it can be not the best thing for you. Although I did feel like it was a few times in the press conference he did use the word mate, and it wasn't in a bad way. So I think maybe that was sold as a bit of a danger word when it wasn't particularly, or isn't going to be. Yeah, and actually he was asked about the Celtic thing, and kind of almost, it wasn't being dismissive of Celtic in the Scottish League, but you could see there was a real case to be made of, it's such a bigger step up to come to the Premier League and Tottenham. And his answer I thought was really good. He said, I had the same sort of questions when I moved into the SPL, but I've coached in a World Cup and in lots of different leagues. I think every challenge is the same, to be honest, because it's relative to the competition you're in. I've never gone into any job thinking this is going to be easy compared to anything else I've done. It will be a massive challenge, absolutely. But Celtic was a massive challenge. I know people say that in Scotland, if you're Celtic, you finish first or second. But for Celtic, second is last. Second, I'm not in a job. You have to finish first. So irrespective of whatever outside thoughts are, there's still a demand there. And it's not just about winning, it's the manner of how you do it. He likes irrespective. You'll notice that. He says irrespective of quite a lot. Yeah, no was the thing that he used quite a lot as well. And like I say, mate crept in there a few times. It was quite interesting. It was all right on injuries. One of my questions, I asked him about injuries, and he told me about, I knew about Fraser Forster, but I wanted to get some confirmation on it. And he confirmed that. Obviously, you'll know my thoughts on Christian Stellini, a man who would hide injured players in, I wouldn't put it past Christian Stellini to get them to walk past the back of the press conference room going, hi everyone, when they were injured, just to make everyone think they were playing. He just did not want to give anyone any advantage, any opposition, and he felt that injury news was a massive advantage for them. It was a nightmare. Sometimes he would tell us that there was no injuries, and you'd find out there were about 5 players who'd been injured for like the whole week, and it was, I wouldn't say it was lying, I would say it was just not giving an advantage to the opposition, I think is the best way to put it. So my questions, if you were wondering, if you cared, I asked 3. I kind of had this, I don't know if I mentioned this in a previous one or not. My aim was to try and go in a little bit personal and try and make a little bit of a connection with my first one. So obviously, and I also wanted to show that I have done a lot of reading on him and I kind of know a lot about his life and his career so far. I'm not just thinking, oh, there's that bloke that's come from Celtic. So my first question was, you've said many times that you create a football team and the way they play, it's all based around this idea of really making your dad proud, because your dad would love those attacking players and the teams that played attacking football. But also, you've also said many times that your dad was quite a tough man to please. Postecoglou once said that after winning the Asian Cup with Australia, he said to his dad, expected some praise, and his dad said something along the lines of, well, yeah, if you'd done this and that, though, you wouldn't have even had to go to extra time. And it was so I said, so with all that in mind, obviously his dad died a few years ago, with all of that in mind, how do you think your dad would have felt about you now being the manager of Tottenham Hotspur in the Premier League? And it was one of those that could have gone either way, because I did apologise at the start of the question. I said, I do apologise for making my first question quite a personal one. But to be fair, he didn't take it in any bad way. He took it in a really good way. And I got a good 2-3 minute answer, which was really good, about how he just straight offered, yeah, I think he'd be really incredibly proud of me. And it kind of started to lean into, if you've seen that viral clip of one of his team talks where he speaks about the people that helped you on your way, and they're the ones that you need to play for. And he kind of started to go into that zone of, it's not just about his dad, it's about his mum, it's about all the people over his career, his wife, his kids, that have kind of had to sacrifice for him to get to this stage. And it was a really nice answer. So I kind of did that quite deliberately. I was really interested in the answer as well, but also I felt to kind of start to build that connection. And then that meant my second one could be about one of my other favourite subjects, Tanguy Ndombele, who, from the kind of the word out of from within the club seems to be quite positive about Tanguy, that he's, trained really well so far this week, and that is kind of, I've said this before, that I do think Tonguy's body language sometimes betrays him. No, that's not the right word. His body language kind of creates this false narrative about how he is, when actually, he gives a lot on the training ground. I remember hearing that before Conte actually kind of, you remember he ended up in training on his own, that actually he tried really hard, just wasn't a Conte player. So I asked Ange about him and essentially, what's he been like, and is he likely to be part of your plans? And his answer was, Tonguy's been good. He's working hard at training. To be fair, they all are. They've got no option. Again, I take things as I see them. For me, he's obviously a very talented footballer. He was part of a team that won Serie A last year. And within that context, I'm pleased to have him here and part of the group. What that means long term, again, I will not get into the definite of that, because a lot of that will depend on how the team shapes up and how he shapes up. He may decide this is not for him. I'm not sure. Like I said, the group I have had in so far have been really good at embracing the change of direction, the way we're doing things. As I said, once we get all the other guys in, it will be great to see how everyone measures up, and decisions will be made moving forward from there over who will be involved and who won't. So yeah, I mean, he's essentially saying there, all the group that have been in thus far have really bought into it, and that appears to be Tanguy as well. We'll see. Look, I'm a realist. I know this is Tonguy's 5th pre-season at the club, and it hasn't worked out for him in the past. I'm clinging to the hope that this is only the second attacking coach he's had, and that, that may make a difference, because I do think in the Postecoglou system, he could do some very good things. So let's see. I would love to see him on the tour. I would love to be able to interview him out there as well, if they'll allow us to, if they don't hide him away. But yeah, first step is getting in that squad. If he's on that, then that's a big step forward. That's a big suggestion that actually we might have a chance here of seeing a Tanguy renaissance. But then we'll see. And then my third question, was about those injuries and everything. Literally just as I'm doing this, Bild are reporting that Spurs have made it clear that offers below €100 million for Harry Kane will not even be considered. I do wonder if it'll end up being £100 million rather than euros, but we shall see. So yeah, Yeah, I'm intrigued to see how many players he takes. There's been some suggestions that he might take around 28 players, which would obviously include some young players. You know, you might get your Alfie Devines in there, Dane Scarlett, maybe Troy Parrott if he can. I think he's got a slight groin problem, was what he's been struggling with. And you know, he might take someone like Matthew Craig, obviously after signing his new deal. That's probably someone I'm really obvious I'm missing out as well. It's going to be interesting in the goalkeeper department. You've got Vicario. It's going to have to be Whiteman and Austin as well. I wonder whether young Josh Keeley gets a chance to go along as well. Highly thought of within the club as well. He arrived, was it last season? It was only about a year ago at the most. I feel like he went somewhere. Where was it? It wasn't last year on the tour, was it? Or was it? He went somewhere. Maybe it was one of the other pre-season trips, but yeah, maybe. Normally you take 3, but you never know. As a young one for experience and to work with Rob Birch, a new goalkeeping coach, who I don't think he would have known him. I'm trying to think if his time as an academy coach would have synced up. I think he's probably too recent, Josh Keeley. Young Republic of Ireland international, if you're not aware. Very good young keeper. But yeah. Postecoglou was very clear that his new signings, Vicario and Maddison, were very much chosen by him because he feels they'll fit his system. He was quite clear on that. Vicario as well, which very much was a pointer of he's my man. You know, especially with Hugo, clearly he's going to head out. It just there's no reason not to at this point. We'll see. I just wonder whether he won't go on that tour. It would seem pointless too. I know he's the club captain, but I don't see the benefit of it. For me, let Vicario now become that number one. Let that process begin on the tour. Hugo wants to go. The club are happy for him to go as long as, you know, it all works out financially. It would just seem silly for him just to head off on the tour. Cue him being named tomorrow in the tour squad. But yeah, you know what I mean. Do you know the other refreshing thing as well I felt about Postecoglou's press conference was we've had a lot of being told, fans and the media, yeah, Spurs are a bit naff, accept that. You know, just accept the fact that Spurs are kind of mediocre and there's so much to do before they can ever be anything but that. And I just felt like Postecoglou didn't come in with that attitude. He kind of came in with the thought of, you know, let's see what my football wins things. Let's see where we go. And it was just refreshing. And again, you could absolutely say that Conte in particular was being realistic and a lot of things he was saying were right. But you don't want to have that drummed into you. I don't think it's of any benefit for a club to constantly be told you're mediocre. I think the club needs to be told that they can be better. And that's the way of turning that around. And Postecoglou, I do think, dealt well with it. He got one question that was... the question was something along the lines of, so you've taken over a Spurs side without any European football, no Champions League, no Europa League, no Conference League. It finished 8th in the league last season. It conceded 63 goals. That hasn't happened in a long time. 14 years they haven't been in European football. So what will success look for you? And he kind of had a little bit of a laugh. And he went, gee, you've created a pretty bleak picture there. I was excited about this role. It was just a funny little light touch. And he kind of peppered the press conference with these little moments. And he continued, he said, to be fair, without sort of being dismissive of it, this is why I'm here. That is what I love about, because all of that is not here, as in there isn't that European football, there isn't that sense of we're going to win a trophy. He's kind of coming in at a level where really kind of Spurs can almost, it's a dangerous thing to say, they can only go up. Yes, I know they can go down, but in his eyes, he feels that he can kind of only improve them. He says, that's what I want to bring. I want to bring success to this football club. I want to bring European football to this football club. And I want to bring it to where it deserves to be. As much as the excitement of joining a massive football club in the best competition in the world was attractive to me, the biggest thing about it was that there is this enormous challenge here. I love that. It's what I've done my whole career. Every club I've taken over, I've always taken over a side who have had a disappointing season or disappointing seasons. For me, that is something I've cherished most in my career, to do things that will last and make a difference, to create something that hopefully lasts beyond my tenure, because I won't be here forever. The kind of scenario you've painted of where we are at the moment is what attracted me most about this role. What a great challenge. What a great story if we get it right. So what does success look like? I think the fans will tell me that. I just love that. I love that answer. I thought it was a really good answer. It was like a challenge laid down to himself as much as anyone. And just no fear. He's got no fear. He's been in these situations before. Yeah, he's absolutely ready for it. And I love that about him. Every manager loves a good analogy as well. I use enough analogies myself in these and metaphors. Managers do love analogies, even when they go, they're completely mixed up and they all go a bit haywire. Postecoglou used one towards the broadcast section, the end of the broadcast section in his press conference. It got a little bit mixed up. It ended up being road to railway. And we also had a derailment that didn't actually stop anything. I'll read it out too. I've got it here. Essentially, it's, in summary, like I said before, the Ange train. Everyone getting on board a locomotive that clearly can be derailed yet jump back onto tracks, which is amazing. And essentially, yeah, if you don't have a ticket for his train, then you're just delaying the inevitable. The train's still going to get to where it's heading to. I've got a quote here. It is, because he was asked, what message did he give to the players? And he said, just to be open-minded and not be bogged down too much by expectation or history. Just to understand that we're going to go down a different road. We're going to do things differently. Not because I think it's better or anything, but because it's me. I'm different to the other managers that have been here, and I'll do things my way. The more we have people buy into that, the quicker we will get to where we want to, because when there is resistance, it just slows down the process. But what I've made it clear is that it won't change the process. It won't change where we're going. It won't change me or the way we do things. It might just derail it for a little bit, but it won't derail it for long because I won't allow it. The quicker they jump on the train, the quicker we can get to our destination. So yeah, derailed train can still jump back on the tracks and go where it's going. But you know what he meant. Absolutely knew what he meant. And let's be honest, old Ange's jumping train, it might just be the most exciting thing we've seen at Spurs for a long time. I am really looking forward to it, as you can tell. I'm really looking forward to going on this tour and seeing his football as it's meant to be. I think they had a training ground friendly by the sounds of it. I think it was against Cambridge this week. It's difficult. Those kind of friendlies, you're not going to take too much from it. They're normally, most managers divide them into thirds. They're normally played in 30-minute sections. I think it was before... Was it before the international play? It wouldn't have involved the international players because I don't think so, because it would have been too early. It would have been maybe a bit of a risk throwing them in there. But ultimately, these three friendlies abroad we're going to start to see. Obviously against West Ham, which is a good experience. Leicester is a good experience. And also, no Roma now. We now have the Lion City Sailors from Singapore, which is an amazing name for a football club. I don't know whether they're in their season or not. Sometimes when you do that, it was a game last year. Oh, it was against the Korean All-Star 11. A lot of those players were playing football. They were in the middle of their season. So the fitness thing was a good thing to be up against players who haven't reached that match sharpness yet. I must admit, I will know when I'm there, but I don't know at this moment how active the Singaporean league is and whether they're during their season. I imagine it'd be very hot to play right now. I don't know. But presumably they are, if they'll be able to get the team together. Let's be honest, it was so difficult to get a team together at late notice to suddenly be in. A lot of teams' plans are all in place already. So they're the three teams that Spurs will play. And they've also got the game against Shakhtar Donetsk. And they've also got Barcelona match as well, August the 8th. There was some rumours going around about a Celtic game in Dublin, but I don't think there's actually anything to that from what I understand. That's 5 games for Postecoglou to start getting his idea across and for us to see the football. Because I think when he first went to Celtic, he had a bit of a kind of a mare in the fact that they had a Champions League qualification game really early after he arrived. Whereas with Spurs, it's got these 5 games to really kind of start putting his football across. And I'm really looking forward to it. I am. Like I say, first off, really they need to sort out the defender thing. It's a bit daft that we've got to this point and a defender hasn't been signed. But hopefully things of that will step up. as always with these things, maybe I'll do this video, it will go out there and we'll get news of exactly what's happening with Defender either tonight or tomorrow. That would be great. Knowing my luck, it will be while I'm in the air. and I will arrive the next day. Because this is the thing, I go late tomorrow and I don't actually land until late on Saturday night in Australia. So I may land and I'll be like, I've got a little stop in the middle for about an hour and a half, but in all likelihood, I may land after missing an entire day and go, oh wow, so that happened at Spurs, which is not an experience that's normal to me because I try to keep my finger on the pulse. But yeah, we shall see what happens. And mostly tomorrow, and obviously I should know before I fly, will be the travelling squad. Because, you look at it, you could end up with maybe Lloris not going, maybe Højbjerg not going, maybe Perisic not going, maybe Sanchez, like I say, and maybe Rodon. There's quite a few there who could potentially, maybe, like I say, if the injury, maybe Jed Spence doesn't go. There's a fair few others in there that you never know kind of exactly what holds for them. You'd hope Brian Hill goes, unless there's like something comes in loan-wise suddenly for him. But really looking forward to it. Like I say, I will attempt to do some videos out there. Try to do one maybe from each location if I can after each game. Or it may be that I'm at the next location and have to do one on the previous game. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, honestly, keep an eye on all my social media feeds. I'm now on Threads as well. On there. It's quite interesting on Threads because it takes from your Instagram account. I've actually got my blue tick on there. So you can actually tell, yes, it is me. It's not these weird people that make up accounts with like letters that slightly look, and it looks like it's me tweeting, honestly. The worst one was when I came back from one of the tours. It was a few years back, and I landed to everyone going mad about a tweet that I apparently had put out there, and it was like, no, it was just some weird person that had just made a fake account and made it look like it was me. And that's the trouble with Twitter now, because they did the whole thing of taking blue ticks away unless you pay for them. It does maybe makes it easier for people to do that, because that blue tick was a way of people actually knowing it was the proper person. But yeah, on Threads. I think the Threads. Oh, you'll find me. Just search Alistair Goldham on there if that's your thing. You don't have to. You know what I'm like. You don't want to follow me. Don't follow me. It's absolutely your option. But yeah, also looking forward to see Destiny Udogie as well, seeing what he's like and how he fits as a left back into the Postecoglou system, and maybe Tongi as well. That would be great. Not as a left back. So right, I'm going to head off now. Won't hear from me obviously for a few days because I'm probably going to be absolutely jet lagged for a while as well. But if there's anything massive that happens the next couple of days, maybe I'll try and do something on Sunday when I'm in Australia. We'll see how it goes, but it would have to be a fair few big things happen in that meantime. Otherwise, it will just be after the West Ham match. But I shall see you on the other side, quite literally on the other side of the world. As always, excuse me. Stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves, and I shall catch you later. Goodbye.